I hate, hate doing dishes. Like, hate it so much. But I really like making soap. And if I do the dishes and use this dish soap, I can make more soap. So dishes are good. I'm Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. Welcome back to the channel today, guys. I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. You are here for 365 days of soap, and today we are making solid dish soap. Now, this is a really cool recipe because this is something that you can absolutely do from home, and that's not the case with a lot of my recipes because they have kind of exotic oils in them that can be hard to source. But for this particular recipe, this is a single oil soap. With soaps, usually you don't want to use one oil to make a soap. You want a nice balanced bar that have different types of fatty acid chains in them to create a really nice bar that will cleanse and moisturize and lather really well. But this is one of the exceptions to the rule. Now, this particular dish soap, it is made out of 100% coconut oil, and the way that we have made it, I will definitely give you the recipe in the info card below, is so super easy. You can do it at home, you can have fun with it, and then you have created an awesome, super bubbly soap to use for all of your dishwashing needs, as we are in our houses more than we need to be right now, and we're therefore dirtying more dishes. Now, we'll talk more about why coconut oil is a really cool oil to use for a solid dish soap in the video, but I do want to give you a little bit of background on this particular recipe. This is something that I created originally for a wholesale account because they wanted to go zero waste. I love the idea of zero waste. I try not to incorporate any plastic into any of my line, and when I do, we have a sort of buyback program for all of the plastic containers. We do have to put things in, like, for lotions and croaks and things like that. But once I created this for this wholesaler, I was completely hooked. I started using this solid block, and these things last forever. It's ridiculous how long lasting this block of soap is. Like, I am, again, as usual, getting ahead of myself, so let's get to it. So we start this recipe where we start all recipes with prep work. Now, as I said, this is a single oil recipe. So this is a 100% coconut oil recipe. That is the only oil you need. That is the only oil we are going to use. And really, if you were to use just coconut oil for regular recipes, for like a body bar or a shower bar, it would be a bad idea at this ratio. Now, you can super fat coconut oil to 20%, and it actually makes a pretty incredible bar that you can use for a variety of things. But in this case, it is a 0% super fat, and that can be kind of detrimental to your skin, right? It can be very, very drying. And we do not want any sort of drying going on when you're dealing with a shower bar or a body bar. But for a dish soap, that means a really, really bubbly lather at 0% super fat. Now, that's a really good thing for a dish soap, obviously. We want it to lather really well. This is another one of the ways we're going to make sure that it lathers really well. We are actually going to be using an enriched water. This particular distilled water is enriched with soap nuts. Now, soap nuts have historically been used to treat, psoriasis and eczema. We currently use them to, make hair products and to use as a natural hair wash. I do use an enriched distilled water with soap nuts for my hair bars as well. But for these purposes, it's really going to increase the amount of bubbles in the batch. So you're going to get, like, the second you water
comes in contact with this bar, it's going to be a really beautiful lather right off the bat. It's going to be nice and, you know, bubbly. It's not going to be much, there's not going to be much moisture going on, but it is going to cleanse really well. Now, with this recipe, again, it's a 0% super fat, so we are doing a full lye solution. Now, for the soap nuts, I have boiled some distilled water, and then I went ahead and put the soap nuts in that hot distilled water for a few hours to really extract all of the awesome that comes from the soap nuts before using it in my lye water. And then, of course, I want to make sure that it cools down to room temperature before putting it into my lye solution, because when you put lye into water, it gets super hot. We're talking between 180 and 200 degrees. And so we definitely don't want to have, you know, an overheating going on. It can scorch the actual lye water. It can render the lye useless, and so the oils themselves will not saponify. This, however, is a very good batch. Everything's looking really great, and you can see kind of the seam that's coming off there. This is a hot solution. It's probably sitting, pretty close to 200 degrees at this point, so we're going to want to let it cool down in normal circumstances to at least 120 degrees to soap. However, I'm showing you guys the heat transfer method today, so you guys are going to see what it looks like when we soap at 180 degrees. Now, with the heat transfer method, essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take your super hot lye water and you're going to pour it directly into your solid oils. Now, in this case, we only have solid oils for this batch, and so it's really easy. We don't have to add any liquid oils after you've melted all of the coconut oil down. The biggest benefit of using a heat transfer method is going to be for specifically oils and butters like this. So you're dealing with a solid state, a single oil batch, and you don't have to wait for the lye water to cool down. So the lye water itself, the heat of it is going to melt all that coconut oil down really nicely to get it ready to then, you know, take your stick blender to it and get it to emulsification and get ready to pour. It makes the entire soaping process very, very quick, but in most circumstances, you're honestly not going to use this. This is something that is really best suited for, again, a single oil batch with a single color. You don't want to do any unique or, you know, crazy designs to it. You're just going to essentially emulsify it, make sure it has all of its additives in there, and then plop it right in the mold. I almost never use the heat transfer method. Honestly, I really prefer my lye to cool down to room temperature before I play with it. But I do use this method in classes because I think every soap maker should see how this works and at least have, you know, one experience with it, if nothing else. It takes, I would say 2 to 3 minutes to get the coconut oil fully melted down in this hot lye solution, and we are looking at a temperature of about 115 degrees right now, which is well within the range of soaping, so we know that we're good to go. We are now going to start at this point with the stick blender, and we're going to start emulsifying. We're going to start mixing this up to get it to emulsification. You will see the soap batter start to lighten up as we continue to mix. You will see some bubbles forming, and you just, sort of pulse and stir to eliminate the bubbles as much as possible. Honestly, I've never had any real problems with bubbles in my soap batter. Some soapers have reported issues of sort of pockets within their finished soap if they don't really tamp those bubbles down. I haven't had an issue with that. That may have more to do with the clays and stuff that I put into my soaps than anything else. I'm really not sure. But we are going to mix this up fairly well. We want to make sure that it's about a medium trace if you're following the whole trace thing, which I, for the most part, don't follow or necessarily use as a guideline, but I'm sure a lot of people that are at this channel have come from other channels and are used to hearing the terms, thin trace, medium trace, heavy trace, whatever. So we are working on a sort of medium trace here because we're not doing much with the soap batter. We are going to mix it and, make sure it's scented. We have the botanical extracts in it, the kaolin clay, and all of the extra, fun things to ensure that we don't have any soap scum with the bars before we plop it into the mold. So we don't really need to keep it at an emulsification or a thin trace to do any complicated swirls. Now, as far as the scent goes, for this particular batch, this is a scent blend that will sort of yield a sort of blue agave. And I am only doing this because I am giving these bars to Soap and Clay Kidlet #1's teacher, because she loved the blue agave blend that I did for a teacher gift earlier in the year, and I wanted to give her a nice care package at this point. And she's at home all the time like all of us, so you know, washing more dishes, I'm going to give her some dish soap. You can use kind of whatever you want. I really recommend lavender and orange, or lavender mint, or mint and orange. Those are all really good blends for a dish soap. Now I am coloring it blue with some micas. You don't have to. You can leave it completely natural. For the most part, I do leave it natural because, you know, it's a dish soap. It should be kind of neutral sitting on your counter. Now that this is all mixed up, we are going to give it a quick swirl and then dump it into the mold. This is, again, this is a soap that you can completely do from home. Again, we have coconut oil, sodium hydroxide, distilled water. We have the soap nuts. You can or cannot use them. I have an extract in there that also helps reduce soap scum. You can or cannot use that. I have the kaolin clay, obviously, because I make clay soaps. You can or cannot use that. If you were just going to make a batch of dish soaps with just coconut oil and, you know, sodium hydroxide, it would be super duper bubbly. You could use it directly in your dishwater, or you could use it with a scrubby and, you know, sort of scrub it and then scrub your dishes. Either way, it creates a really phenomenal lather. No soap scum, no residue. It really does an effective job cutting through grease. It's really amazing soap, just exactly as is, with, you know, again, one oil, which usually doesn't happen in the soap world. Usually we have, you know, 5-6 oils going into every batch of soap because, well, because A, we want a balanced bar, but also because two, we really like to be, you know, fancy with all of our cool oils that we put in. So this is a nice example of easy stuff that you can do at home. Now that we are getting this all into the mold, we are going to let it sit overnight. I am going to push this through gel phase. It's not necessary to put this through gel phase because it is a single oil soap, and because that oil is coconut oil, it is going to set up very quickly. It is going to saponify incredibly quickly. It will theoretically be ready for use within a few days, but I really like to pop it anyway, get it through gel phase just to ensure that there's no residual lye left over in the batch. Now it is time for the cut. Now you see what it did up there? It's really weird looking. That was actually a result of me overheating it within, you know, the gel phase with my C-pop. And that actually tends to happen fairly often with single oil soaps like coconut oil or shea or palm, or with oils that have, or with soaps that have a lot of solid oils. Again, coconut, shea, palm, babasu, etc. Now, that's not really a problem because I'm just going to take this after I cut it and I'm going to plane off the top, and then it's like it never happened. Now, again, I'm using my tape measure to measure out the places where I'm going to cut. And then I will be taking just a regular kitchen knife to this one. You do have to be careful with the solid oil soaps, especially when you're looking with like a 100% coconut oil soap, because they get very, very hard very, very quickly. So it's important to cut them within the first 1 to 2 days. And even then you're going to have some difficulty sort of slicing through the bar. That's not the case with normal, you know, balanced soaps or whatever. They're going to be very, very soft 24 hours after you have poured them, and very, very easy to cut with almost anything. With this guy, it is hard as a rock, so it's definitely no easy feat to get through it, and we do end up with areas where the corners may have sort of chipped off a bit with the cut. And again, that's okay because you can clean those up with just a regular planer, and then you have, you know, a perfect block of soap. Now, I was telling you about my, yep, right there. I'm going to go ahead and just cut the top part of this soap right off, and then it's like it never happened. If you don't want to see this bubble, so you don't want to deal with the second step of actually, you know, planing your soaps, that's fine. Don't put it through gel phase. Do not C-pop it. Just leave it uncovered, or, you know, I guess you can cover it, but that does tend to keep the heat in still if you cover it with plastic wrap or whatnot, just on the counter overnight. For this, again, I stuck it in the oven that Mr. Soap and Clay made for specifically C-popping my soaps, and it did get a little bit too hot, which does, again, tend to happen. But as you can see, it's not a big deal. I just shave the top off and it's just a nice smooth bar. Now, this particular batch, it makes 4 blocks of dish soap, and each of those blocks are around 15 to 18 ounces. and that's a lot. That's a lot. I have a block this size at my kitchen sink, and I don't really use my dishwasher anymore because we're going through a remodel and the dishwasher is really kind of out of service. And I wash all my dishes with this. The lather is really amazing. You can put it directly into your dish water, or you can just take a scrubby and scrub each plate individually, and it works just as well either way. Big lather right off the top. And I have been working on the same block for, I'd say about 4 months, and I haven't made much of a dent in it, so incredibly long lasting. If this is something that you decide to make, you should definitely plan on sharing it with, your friends and your family members, because this much soap will last you quite a long time, and I don't think you can dirty that many dishes. So for the ease of making and the value point, this really is a slam dunk soap recipe, and I really hope that you guys will try your hand at it and make some yourself. Well, there you have it, solid dish soap, day 4.
Do you see how easy that was? So we have the heat transfer method going on, something that I haven't shown you yet today. We had one oil that we were working with. You can or cannot color the soap. It cures up within 24 hours. It's ready to use. That is a really simple, fun batch of soap to make that is completely and totally useful. So now keep in mind, if you're using this recipe, that will create at least 4 blocks. So, give one to your friend and one to your mom and one to your grandma and, whatever. Or hoard them all for yourself, but you're not gonna get through those in the next 4 or 5 years, I'll tell you that much right now. So thank you so much for hanging out with us again today. I hope you enjoyed the dish soap recipe. If you have any questions or comments or anything, obviously, put them down there. Follow the page, like the page, subscribe, bells, whatever. Find me on social media. You can find me on the web at soapandclay.com. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with me today. See ya.